Okay, so let's talk about Charles Darwin's theory of evolution. He's considered like the father of evolution. He's the one that's famous for talking about survival of the fittest, that whoever is the most fit to survive is who will survive and the others will die out. Sometimes people even call it Darwinism. Here is Darwin's house in Kent, England, and you can see there's just plants everywhere. He had this huge greenhouse because he was really interested in evolution. So he would like breed and crossbreed plants, like that monk Gregor Mendel, like who crossed the pea plants in that one video, to see like what happens when you mix this with this, and how do things evolve. This is his study, and you can see there's like just every shelf and the table all have all these little samples on them. So he was really obsessed with seeing like how things are related and how they've evolved over time. He also traveled the world to observe evolution, so he really did a good job. So you can see this is a trip he made on his boat, the HMS Beagle, in 1831. So he went down around South America, all the way up to Europe, down around Africa, around Australia. So really covered a lot of the world. And where he did some of his best research was in the Galapagos Islands. So they're really famous for Darwin's research there. And our school does a trip there. They go to Ecuador, in South America, and then the Galapagos Islands are off of Ecuador, and they're protected land, so you have to get like a permit to go there. So why would islands be a really good place to research evolution? Because you have like these isolated little places, and you can see how things developed in different ways when they're isolated from each other. So he thought, okay, so remember selective breeding, where we chose like the cutest, fluffiest wolves and we kept them with us, and then we crossbred them to make more cute, fluffy wolves, or we took the plant that gave us like the best broccoli or cauliflower, and we kind of bred those to. So basically, you pick things with desirable traits and you breed them. So he thought, just like we do selective breeding, which would be called artificial selection, because it's like it doesn't happen naturally, we as humans make it happen. He thought, well, maybe nature kind of does the same thing, not on purpose like we do, but nature kind of picks the best, the most fit animal and allows them to survive. So he thought, artificial selection, where we do it, how about natural selection, where nature selects who is the most fit to survive? So he didn't say the strongest survives, he said the most fit. So basically, like who fits the best, who has the best characteristics to survive in that place. So that's where he came up with natural selection. And to study that kind of selective breeding, he had a hobby. I told you he was obsessed with evolution, of fancy pigeon selective breeding. So top left corner, this is a regular pigeon, as we know today. When you go to the city, you see them. So he made all these different weird pigeons, like this guy with this weird fuzzy neck, just by selecting, like maybe he bred a bunch of pigeons, and one of these had a fuzzy neck, or two of them, he got them together, had them make babies, and then picked the fuzziest necks of those and had them make babies until you get pigeons with really fuzzy necks. Same thing, he made this pigeon with these like foot feathers that kind of look like bell bottoms. He made this pigeon with this really weird neck, and these pigeons with these cool like turkey-like feathers. So again, it's by like selecting the pigeons that kind of had these different weird traits and breeding them together. So he said, okay, well, nature does that too. Nature's not going to select necessarily something weird like that. That's something humans do. But nature's going to select who's the fittest to survive, and they survive, and then they continue to breed. So again, selective breeding, when we humans do it, we call it artificial selection, because humans are picking the traits that we're going to help survive. Like we're going to pick the fluffiest wolves and take them into our homes and feed them and protect them to help them survive. Natural selection is when the environment picks who is the most fit to survive. So there's a great example here. There were two different islands. One island had cactus to eat, and their tortoises looked like this. And then the other island had low vegetation, and their tortoises looked like this. So the island that had low vegetation, like grass, that the tortoises could eat, they have kind of these normal necks that put them right close to the ground so they can eat all this grass. Why? Now, this island, look at the ground here. There's no grass for them to eat. So look at what kind of neck these turtles have. They have this long neck. They also have this, I think it's called like a saddleback shell or saddle shell that allows them to reach up. So why do they have that kind of special shell and special neck? So they can eat this high vegetation because there's nothing on the ground. So in this case, humans didn't say, on this island, I want turtles with long necks. On this one, I want tortoises with short necks. Nature did. And nature didn't do it on purpose, but nature, there was short grass, short vegetation here. So nature said, okay, you can survive with your short neck. And then here, so this is what people get confused on. It's not that all the tortoises were like, let's grow longer necks, okay? Because you can't just decide to do that. I couldn't decide I want a neck like a giraffe, okay? So it's not that like someone decided. It's that some tortoises were born with longer necks and these kind of funny shells. And guess what? They survived because they could reach the high vegetation on this island. So what happened was nature forced this kind of tortoise to survive. So we say he was the fittest, survival of the fittest. He was the most, not actually necessarily like survival of the strongest, but he was the most fit for this island because he could reach the high vegetation. So important points here are that nature drives this instead of humans, so we call it natural selection. Nature selected who was the most fit to survive, and that an individual tortoise couldn't decide to grow a longer neck. It was more that a bunch of tortoises were born. These few had short, long necks, so they were the ones to survive. They mate. They have more babies with long necks. The longest necks ones of those survive the best because they can reach the high food. So they survive, they get together, and they have more long neck babies. Okay, survival of the fittest. Here's another example of natural selection. In this cartoon, it seems like these crows they say, yum, green beetles are our favorite. So it used to be that there were more green than orange, lots of green and very few orange. But it turns out that crows on this island or this area prefer the green. So what happens generations later, there's more orange beetles. And it's not that humans decided that. It's not that nature decided it. It's just that crows found them more tasty. And so they died out. And so it turns out orange, it makes you more fit to survive in this particular environment. So they're the ones that survive. So in conclusion, we have survival of the fittest. The organism that's the most fit to survive is the one that's going to survive and reproduce and make more of itself. Nature selects who's going to survive in natural selection. Humans select in artificial selection. And no individual animal can decide to do it. It's just that some are born a certain way. And if it's an advantage to them, they survive and reproduce.